most caregivers, they really don't plan on falling into this, right? There's this time in our lives where we're like, oh my gosh, here we are.
Usually they get all overwhelmed, exhausted, and guilty or whatever else they're feeling um, before they realize they're already in a crisis. They haven't made any sort of plan for themselves. And I think that's a big problem for the families that are trying to caretake.
Yes. So today we're going to break down some common mistakes that families make. And we're so excited to have you, Pamela. So Pamela Wilson is an expert. She's been doing this for 25 years. We told her, you don't look old enough to be doing it for 25 years. She looks great, right, ladies?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely. So we're glad
Um,
you're here to
thank you.
guide us and give some really solid information that our caregivers can take away and apply in their situation that will make their lives better.
Happy to
absolutely.
be here.
So, Pamela, let's start with this. Like, why do families typically wait too long to act? Like, what are you seeing, and how can you guide them into avoiding some of the pitfalls that caregivers fall into?
The reason that they wait too long to act is they don't understand, if they've not done this before, what's about to happen. And so when you have no idea what's going to happen, you don't think that you need to act.
Mm.
And so by seeking out information and talking to people about, well, what should I be watching out for? What should I be looking for? What questions don't I even know to ask? That is how caregivers can get ahead of this lack of planning issue.
Right.
So, plan ahead. That's what I'm hearing you say. Plan ahead. So,
So,
when you're talking about planning ahead, like, what are the things that they need to be thinking about planning for specifically?
and are there signs? Are there any specific signs to sort of like benchmark, like, ooh, now I need to pay attention?
Well, I always talk about there's three, I call them three legs of a stool. So there's the health and the healthcare part. Then we have the financial part, which is how do parents pay for care? And then we have the legal part. So I call this three parts of a care plan. And the problem is caregivers who start helping, one, they don't realize they're caregivers, right? They're, oh, I'm, taking mom to the grocery store and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. They don't see themselves in the role of a caregiver yet until maybe a doctor calls them and says, hey, you're the caregiver for your parent. So because of that, they don't think that they need a plan. They don't know what they need to plan for. They just start helping. And so that's one of the most common mistakes that caregivers make is they jump in, they start saying, "Oh yes, I'll do this. Yes, I'll do that." And then they become so overwhelmed and burned out, they're asking themselves, "How did I get myself into this situation?"
Oh, so true. And they try to do it alone. They're trying to do everything alone. Why do caregivers feel like they have to do it on their own? They have to do everything.
Sometimes it's because no one else offers to help. And it's also because they never have a discussion within the family. So the first thing that caregivers should do when they start to get into this should be to sit everybody down, mom, dad, and the siblings, and say, look, we have a situation here. Mom or dad need a little bit of help. I can imagine that they're eventually going to need more help. So, siblings, how can you help? And parents, what are you expecting of us siblings? That starts the first planning discussion.
Mm.
Oh, that's so
So
good.
what's challenging, I think, though, in that little arena is when you're the only one that's local and everyone else is long distance. So they kind of get a pass, it seems like.
Well, not so. So
Okay.
I do caregiving counseling all over the United States. I talk to parents separately, I talk to children separately, and I talk to parents and children together. So because of Zoom, because of virtual meetings, there's no excuse for family not to get together. And the child who is local needs to be the one to say, we all need to meet. We need to meet every 2 weeks. We need to meet every month. We have to talk about this.
Mm.
Oh, I love that. That's such a great idea. Love that. And do you feel like the child who's not doing that, this is where their burnout comes from?
Absolutely. Their burnout comes from I'm the only one that's doing this. Nobody else is helping, even though they probably either haven't asked anyone to help or haven't asked again. So caregivers will ask a sibling, well, can you help with this? And the sibling's like, well, no, but they never ask again. They never say, hey, siblings, I'm burned out. I'm exhausted. I don't think I can do this anymore. So we all need to sit together and make a plan because I'm out.
I love that. So, why do you think they avoid those conversations? Because you do see a lot of siblings start having this sibling rivalry almost again during this season.
Conflict. Who likes to deal with conflict? I mean, how many of us deal with conflict every day in our life? Do you really want more? And family conflict is, I would say, harder than any other conflict because we
Absolutely.
all take things personally.
Right.
Mm.
Right. And there's
And
like
we
this,
have baggage. We have family baggage.
I was gonna say, like,
No, we don't have any
Years
family baggage. No one
years
does.
of, you got the first car and I got the hand-me-down clothes and I
well,
didn't get this and mom and dad liked you
too,
better.
then sometimes I think there's almost like a jealousy, like you're getting closer to mom. Would she, maybe give you more in inheritance and all that stuff? Like this is like this big conversation, and it's the healthcare, but it's also, like you said, there's the money side of it, the legal side of it. That I think can be. We don't really even know what to ask about some of those things. So like,
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So, in my opinion, these family discussions start early before parents need help. And it is perfectly okay if a parent wants to compensate a child, okay? But it has to be done legally above board according to state laws. And that parent should tell all of the other children, you know what? This child is helping me out 40 hours a week. I'm going to pay them. We have a pay agreement. This is the way it is. Whether you all like it or not, I'm doing this. So
mm,
the parent, in a sense, has to protect the child who's helping from the other child who are going to be angry that their inheritance may being spent.
rolled away. Yeah, right, 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 right. Wow, that's a great
Oh,
idea.
yeah, that
That's
is a great idea. And then you have those parents out there that unfortunately haven't planned well, and it's the opposite. It's the kids all coming together to have to support this parent, and oftentimes it's the person that's locally that's doing most of the work and the finance as well because they just don't see it. And so I think your idea of having family counseling, those meetings, how often do you typically do that for a family?
Early on, if it's the first meeting, we may meet every week for 4 weeks, and then it may go to every other week and once a month. As things get more resolved and people are talking about things, then it's less time. And then maybe it's just a quarterly check in every now and then. You kind of have to get everybody on the same page about what we're here to talk about and what the goal is.
So what kind of conversations do families kind of avoid?
Oh, they avoid every conversation. Like, is there money to pay for care and who's gonna pay for care? And if there isn't money to pay for care, what do we do?
Right. That's a biggie.
Money's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you see so many families be torn apart. I mean, I saw this in the past with extended family members that just ended up because their, family member was sick. None of the siblings spoke because of finances at the end of it. And then after they passed, now they're completely separate. They won't even speak at all. It's really heartbreaking. So I love the idea of coming together and, dealing with it earlier versus later when it's too late.
It's almost like you're a mediator, like you're bringing up the topics that
Yes.
people don't want to talk about. I mean, like death and money are the two things that people they just don't want to even go there. Your parents, you feel like your parents. I felt like my parents were thinking that I was trying to dig in their pocket a little bit, and that was not the case. It was just like, I need to find out where things are and if things are in place so that I can handle it the way you want it to be handled, not the way I want it to be handled. And sometimes people don't even want to talk. They don't want to talk about, being buried, being cremated, being like this church or that church or whatever. Those are all really important things that are so personal that if you're the caregiver, you want to make sure you're doing the right thing, but you haven't even taken the time to, ask the right questions.
Well, and in that aspect, it helps. So I was a court appointed guardian, conservator, medical, financial power of attorney, personal rep. It helps if the parents are willing to talk about an estate plan
Mhm.
because you have an estate plan to name one of your children or somebody else an agent. Of course, then you have other children who are like, well, why didn't we get named? So again, getting this all out with the parents saying, look, I'm naming this child, over medical, I'm naming this child over financial. Sorry if you other kids disagree. This is the way it's going to be. And then the parents can tell those children specifically how much money they have, what they want, and what their wishes are.
Oh, so important. So part of that tripod that you were talking about was the health system.
Yes. Oh, yes. Which
Let's
is,
talk a little bit about that. Like, what do caregivers not understand about the healthcare system that's causing them so much difficulty? Because I hear that all the time.
Mm.
well, part of it is if you're not either on a release for your parents, like a health permission release, or you're not that medical power of attorney, it's hard for you to communicate if you're using your parents' health portal or to have anyone listen to you. But again, there's this boundary between just because you're the healthcare power of attorney agent doesn't mean you get to make all the decisions. As long as your parents are capable, they're running the show. So children have to find this balance between helping parents navigate the healthcare system and not taking over.
Mm, yeah. And so one of the questions I get often from caregivers is, when can I step in when I see her making crazy choices? Her dementia is getting worse. What do I have to physically do to be able to step into that role?
Physically and legally, because the
So,
legal part is will hold you back from making decisions. Like I'm in that position right now with my mom. I really can't legally make decisions. I'm supposed to make whatever she says,
mhm.
happen, like honor her request, but she's making some not wise requests.
Well, so there's two sides to that. Okay, so there is you are the power of attorney agent for healthcare. In that document and in the state statutes where you live, there should be something in your document that says, if two physicians say that I am incapacitated, then this power of attorney takes effect. Now, most power of attorney agent documents these days are durable, which means it takes effect immediately. But for incapacity, it's another step. So
Right.
you either need two doctors' letters, and then you use that to go with the power of attorney to say, yes, I can make decisions. But even still, if your parents told you what they want in that power of attorney document, you have a duty to do that. You can't just say, oh, mom or dad said they would have never wanted to live with any of our siblings, but she's going to move in with my sister Terry. Well, no, you can't do what your parents didn't want. You can do things that keep them safe or that remove them from harm. So there's a big difference in that power.
Mm.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, that's a big one, right? Because you see your parent getting, and oftentimes they're on that cusp. They're not quite there. They're coherent most of the time, but then in those irrational moments, they're making decisions that are affecting them. And I've heard of some of people I deal with have family members that are like just giving away big chunks of their estate to people because you have so many scammers too that are out to get these poor seniors.
Oh, the scams today are horrible. They will they'll call older people, get their bank account number, take thousands of dollars out of their bank account. All of that needs to be reported.
Right.
Absolutely, I agree,
So we
100%.
tried to prohibit my mom from making some of these financial decisions that were not wise by simply just taking the checks away. She can't write because she was writing checks to like all the servers at her assisted living, and she's
Oh,
not supposed to do that. She's supposed, like all these things. So we just took the checks away, and now she just has one credit card that gets used to get her nails done and things like that, which is a help because then I can track one thing. But you
That's
know,
a great idea.
yeah, well, it's the only thing we could figure that would work because she was being irresponsible. And we kept on saying, this is not what dad would have wanted. This is not, you just flagrantly writing these checks. And she thought she was writing a check to a grandson and it was just somebody else named Chris.
Well, did you have her evaluated though? I mean, do you not have memory testing that you can use? You don't have a doctor that can say she can't make good decisions anymore? See, these are steps that caregivers do not take that they should.
This is what's so interesting is like one day she's like so sharp and cogent, and another day she's kind of like off the reservation, you
But
know?
that's how dementia goes. That's how
And
memory loss goes.
if she's in on a good day, they're like, why do you look? Why is she even in here? She's like so for
A
90
5-hour neuropsychological evaluation,
5 hours.
it doesn't matter if it's a good day or a bad day. The
No.
testing will show
Yeah,
what's going on.
right,
Absolutely.
right. Okay, I'm on it. I'm on it.
Because if you wait
We're here
too long,
learn as much as you are.
You know, my biggest concern right now is that I feel like she's getting close to that stage where she should be in an assisted living. She's actually still in independent living, but she will fight me like you can't believe to to lose her independence. She will be so upset, like she'll want to disinherit me. She'll want to like all that, all that. Is there a way to prevent that from happening, or is
so is she on a campus? Is she on a campus where there's independent and assisted?
yes? But the assisted is so small, there aren't that many beds available. That's part of the problem. Finding a good assisted living where you would feel comfortable with your parent or your spouse or somebody staying, they're few and far between. You know, Tina, more than anybody.
Yeah,
That's why
definitely.
you've been in this business, so that
So
you
the
know.
answer to that question depends on a number of things. I would never take away independence from a person as long as they're safe. Because when you take someone from independent living and you put them in a more significant care situation, they decline to the level of the people in that care situation.
Wow.
So you have to ask yourself, is that what you want to happen?
Right. Right. No. Right. But I will also say, and Tina and I have talked about this too, is that there's sometimes a misconception that an assisted living is a bad thing, whereas it could be the thing that you're doing that helps your parent the most. They they are still socializing. They've got more eyes on them for them to be safe. I mean, is Tina? Do you think every assisted living is a step down?
No, it just depends on the level. And especially, I find a lot of the more boutique residential assisted living, you can find some very active individuals. There's a ton of different models. And so I really do think part of it is the model of what they go into. There's one down the street from us that's more like a country club than it is anything. And those people are very, very active. I'm impressed actually. But what they do that I find that's different that I do actually like in the larger style is that they're mixing their assisted living and their independent. So if you're an independent living person, you can get an apartment there. The only difference is that you're not getting the daily care
Mhm.
as the person next door who's an assisted living person. And so I feel like it's a little bit more active, a little bit more engaging for those individuals that aren't quite debilitated as, some assisted living. And so it really depends on the model, I feel like, from the ones I've evaluated, because I've evaluated a ton of them in our community, because
Right.
that's what I do, right? So, yeah.
Well, and it depends on when the people moved in. So let's say that an assisted living community has been around 20 years. A lot of those people who are still there probably have declined and they may not have had newer people move in. So it's also the mix and the timing of how long
Absolutely.
have people been there and what's the level of their daily ability.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
My mom's now one of the older ones there at 92. And she was one of the younger ones, when she first came in.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
absolutely, it does make a difference.
Well, and I do think in that case, having extra just caregiving time even for mom would be of huge value to her. Just having someone there a few more hours a day to make sure that she is staying safe and even, using the technology so you really know what's going on when you're not there would be huge for her.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about the caregiver themselves, Pamela, because we've talked about some of the mistakes. Like, what is the mistake that you see that caregivers make with their own self care? Because I think that's a huge issue. You get so busy taking care of other people that you're not taking care of yourself.
Well, it's the fact that they jump in and sometimes they don't even ask parents, "Well, do you want help with this or can I help with this?" They just start taking over. And so what that does is it consumes more and more of their time and they don't make time for self-care and they don't ask other people for help and they don't set boundaries. Caregivers and all the stats show this, they become sicker than the people that they care for, especially if it's someone with dementia. And so the caregiver has to step back and say, "Look, what can I realistically do? What have I given up in my life? Time with my spouse, time with my kids? Am I deprioritizing my job? How do I look at all this realistically and go back to mom and dad and say, all I can do is 5 hours a week. We have to hire help. I need time for my own life and for my own well-being and for my own self-care."
So good. So good. And what is burnout? So many of them end up burned out. Like, what would you say to someone that were listening to this? That what are some of the signs that you might be burned out? You need to really pay attention.
Oh, you're angry, you are resentful, you're saying, "Well, nobody else is helping me. I have to do this by myself. Mom and dad is difficult." Maybe you're at the point where you don't even like your parents anymore. You hate having to go over there. The phone rings and you're like, "Oh my gosh, it's my mom again. It's my dad again." Any negative feelings are telling you that something probably needs to change.
So good.
Right.
And why do you think that caregivers keep pushing even when they feel that?
Because some of them, so a lot of it goes back to parent-child relationships. Some children feel like their parents never gave them approval, so maybe they're trying to get approval by being this
Mhm.
caregiver. Maybe their parents enabled them to depend too much on the parent, so they're still looking to the parent for some type of support in some way. I mean, there's so many dynamics that lead caregivers to not set boundaries and to continue in roles that really destroy their lives.
Mm.
Because it impacts not just your health as the caregiver, which is my situation, but your spouse,
Mhm.
because they're getting short shrifted, because your energy. And I just find it, just kind of challenging. And then, I've got brothers coming in this week, so I'll get a little relief. And trying to find those times when you've got the relief to really take care of yourself, so that you've got a little extra reserve, so you're not getting those calls and going like, oh my gosh, like, and I can relate. I can relate, and it makes you feel so guilty because my parents have just been great parents all the time, and this is new. This is new behavior. It's not fun, and when you feel like you've kind of lost that parent, that person that you knew, because the dementia is
Mhm.
accelerating, their personality is changing, and they were kind of in this narcissistic framework. I think of the aging brain. It's kind of like it's all about me. Kind of goes back to when you were a little kid. It's all about me. I'm the child. I'm the toddler. I'm
Mhm.
all the attention, and I'm seeing that again now at this stage. And it just is like I just don't know how to handle it. Sometimes I just want to shake my head and just walk away, but you can't. You
Well,
can't.
and to your point, that may be a reason that, if your mom really can't make decisions anymore and that's determined, that you do move her in assisted living so that you have that extra support
Yeah.
because you're just going to burn out. And if you're not doing something for yourself every single day,
Right.
it's hard to survive.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, we've got an upcoming episode where we're going to talk about that, right, Tina? All the little things that you can do, little
Yes, some practical ways to help relieve stress.
and I'm
So, Pamela,
just a student signing up for that class.
can you share a situation where you saw like family where they could have done things a lot different sooner, and just to help guide some of the families listening, like an example of what that would look like if they just got ahead of things versus waiting too long?
So, a lot of families will have, as we talked, one caregiver who steps up and starts doing it all. And the other siblings are like, "Oh my gosh, thank God. I'm just going to go on with my life," right? And
Exactly.
then eventually though something happens. So that caregiver gets burned out. That caregiver says, "I'm not doing this anymore." Or that caregiver starts to have power of attorney documents changed, wills changed, all of this kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden the other kids are objecting when they could have had conversations before to avoid all of that.
Oh,
So being a distant family member, while you may think it's really cool because you're not doing the work, you really should be keeping up on what's going on, because then it's really hard for you to come back and say, well, my sister's taken advantage of mom and dad, or my brother did this. Well, you were kind of complicit by not being involved.
Right.
wow. So good. So, Pamela, as we shared earlier, part of this podcast, we want to bring joy and laughter back into this really difficult season. So, do you have a funny story of something you've seen that just can bring a little laughter to the heavy scenario that we've been talking about today?
So one of my experiences, I was a guardian for this lady she was from the South, and she had this beautiful Southern accent. So I would take her to doctor appointments. And one day we were at the doctor and they needed a urine sample. And the bathroom was, gosh, probably no bigger than this area that I'm sitting in. And so she was in there and I'm like, hey, is it, everything working out okay? She's like, no, I need some help. So I squeezed in there. And she was like, I just can't hold the cup. She goes, can you do it for me? I'm like, of course I can. Let me get some gloves. And she's like, she goes, isn't it just hell to be old and have somebody have to do this for you? And we were just like, she had this wonderful sense of humor. We were laughing in this bathroom. I'm sure everybody out there were like wondering, what the heck are they doing? But she had this wonderful sense of humor. And can you imagine you're 86 years old and you can't hold a cup to pee in and somebody else has to do it for you. Just the dignity and just the compassion and empathy that you have to give. All of us could be in that situation someday. And it was one of the funniest things that ever happened. And she fortunately had the sense of humor to see it that way.
Right.
Oh, I love that. That's exactly why we're doing this podcast, because we want people to be able to laugh, and we don't want anyone to feel like they're doing this alone.
No, they're not.
And when you hear stories like that, it makes you feel more compassionate. It makes you realize that this is common. This is human beings as we age, and these things are going to happen. And lucky for her that you were there as her guardian, versus a child.
Yeah, she was one of the greatest blessings in my life. She was a wonderful, wonderful lady.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you, Pamela, for being on with us. You've been a wealth of knowledge, and we're so thankful that you are here. And one thing, that we do offer through our podcast is, for those of you who are listening, feel free to reach out. We do a 15-minute free just conversation to have discussions and to point you in the right direction, because we are building, tools and to, if you need counseling, Pamela does counseling all over the country for families, and happy to connect with you. So you're not in this alone.
I'd be calling you, Pamela.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good for our family to have this kind of discussion.
Well, it's helpful.
It's like to have a plan, like you're saying, it just sets the stage for the future, because it's coming,
for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's great. So be sure to reach out. We'll put the link down below. We'll put Pamela's information down below so you can reach out to her if your family needs counseling. And we're happy to help you navigate through this season, because you're not alone, right, ladies?
Not alone.
All right. Have a great day. Oh, Melinda, do you want to end us in a quick prayer?
Oh, I'm just going to say, thank you, God, for bringing us all together, for us, the knowledge that Pamela shared with us. And we hope that it lands on the ears of those and the hearts of those who could use that information the most. Amen.
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 So join us, pull up a chair, you're strong, you're seen, you're right.